Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Willpower Podcast. They have a very special guest on. His name is Romano, but he goes by Mano. And he is from Ireland. And hey, Mano, how you doing today, buddy?
Very good, man. You forgot to say sunny Ireland.
Sunny Ireland, I know.
And it's
Well,
lovely.
I'm in New England, so right now that's actually not that bad. It's kind of sunny, but it's not like, not like Ireland's. Yeah. So, Mano, tell me a little bit about yourself. Who are you? We know where you're from now, but what's your story? Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Where do I begin? I'm 26 years of age. I'm from a small town on the west of Ireland called Sligo. My birthday is actually coming up next week. I am a father of one. Um, yeah, I'll kind of go through my story from start to finish. Growing up on a council estate in Ireland. Both my parents and on both sides of my family, addiction is kind of rampant. More so with alcohol and like prescription drugs. And I grew up in an environment where obviously addiction was rampant in the household. There was a lot of arguments, a lot of tension, a lot of hostility, and I was the baby of the house. My mum split up from her husband and went with my dad. So both my parents were quite old when they had me. I think my dad was like maybe 39, my mum was 40. So I grew up in an environment where there was a lot of tension because of the alcohol abuse in the household, and I would have seen a lot of things growing up that no child the age of 3, 4, 5 should ever have to see. And that would stem from a lot of things. It would be, violence. It would be police coming to the door. It would be, not going to school because my parents were too hungover to bring me. Just, screaming and arguments and tension and all that kind of stuff. And it's only recently that I've started working on myself in terms of counseling and stuff like that, that I actually see how much it's instilled itself in my whole being and in my whole personality. Because of kind of the environment that I grew up in, it made me suppose go in on myself quite a lot, and I was a very anxious an anxious child, and wanted to be alone a lot of the time as well, because I just felt, if I kept my distance away from people, that I wouldn't be in a position where I could be, in, I suppose, in an environment where there would be tension or arguments or all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Um, I remember my probably earliest childhood memory. I think I was maybe about 4 years of age. My older brother would have been minding me in the house, and my mum would. I think my mum kicked my dad out of the house at this time, so they had a very hostile relationship. So the house was continuously, my dad would be kicked out of the house. He would be allowed back into the house. He would be kicked out of the house, and so on and so on. So that left me quite confused from a very young age of, not having that structure, that stability, and that in the household. Well, I remember one night I was about maybe 4 years of age, and it was close to Christmas, where I heard commotion outside, and I looked out my top bedroom window, and I seen my mum coming in the front gate, and she couldn't get the gate open, and she tried to kick the gate open. She snapped her leg in half, so like the bone completely snapped on her leg. And I remember from that age, even knowing that she was going out drinking, but I thought she was dead because I was so young, I was so naive. And I rang my brother, I was like, we need to ring the ambulance, mum is dead outside. So I suppose, I was aware of the surroundings that I was in from even such a young age of what was actually going on. I suppose I was introduced to that lifestyle and introduced to alcohol and that kind of way of living from a very young age. As time went on and both my parents' addiction progressed, um, my parents split up from the age of maybe, I think it was about 9 or 10. But just before that happened, I'm just going to obviously mention it now because it'll kind of tie into where I'm going with this. But
Mhm.
I lost my mum to suicide 4 years ago due to mental health and addiction, and that's okay, mate. It's just it's a fucking wake up call, and it was something that needed to happen, I suppose, for me to kind of realize where it was going to lead me if I continued doing what I was doing. But I remember my mum tried to kill herself multiple times and multiple attempts across, 15 years and stuff like that. So I remember from the age, I remember I think it was about 8 or 9. Me and my dad woke up and we were getting ready for school for me, and my mum wasn't in the house. So we obviously went looking for my mum, and she actually left the house that morning drunk and crashed a car trying to kill herself, and was in a really, really bad in a bad car crash. I remember, like, I just thought this was kind of normal. It's fucked up in a mad sense that this was just my kind of life, and it was only as I got older I was like, Jesus, that is not normal for any child to be seeing. Like, I've got a kid now; he's 2.5 years of age. I can't ever imagine him of being in that kind of fucking situation. Like, it's mental. So yeah, the drinking and the arguments got too much. So my parents eventually split up when I was about 10 or 11, and it was at that point with having no father figure in my house. Sorry, just give me 1 second. Well,
Yeah.
it was just at that point having kind of no father figure in the house that I looked elsewhere for love, for acceptance, for I don't know. I just looked for something to fill the void that I desperately needed and desperately had. A lot of confusion around it, and just it was at that point I went completely downhill. I went in on myself quite a lot. I got really, really depressed. I was skipping school. I was fighting quite a lot, and yeah, it was at that point where my mum's addiction started to progress as well. She was trying to maintain a job, trying to look after me, trying to obviously look after herself. She was obviously devastated that my dad left, but couldn't understand the reason why. So she ended up losing her job or quitting her job, and that's when the drinking started getting progressively worse for her. And just the environment that was then created in the household with her not being at work it just replicated or duplicated itself from when I was the age of maybe 3 or 4. So I could not physically or mentally or emotionally be in that house because there was no emotional support there for me. There was no emotional love. It was just like it was a place to stay. It was a place to crash. It was just there was no there was just nothing there for me. And I had so much resentments towards my mum and my dad for the way he was allowed to, I suppose, grow up. I kind of came to terms with that because I now realize from me going through my own shit that they obviously had their own problems. And I'm a big believer in generational trauma. So, like, you look back, and I spoke about this I'm doing psychology now at the moment, but I spoke about generational trauma and the likes of the Irish culture. There's a lot of I suppose a stigma around Irish people being alcoholics or fond of a drink, and I suppose, in my opinion, I think that stems from thousands of years of colonization and the famine and all that kind of stuff, and that's instilled itself and it's in the DNA of all of us. So, like, they've had their own issues, and I kind of don't hold any resentments now towards them for all that.
Yeah, my father was 100% Irish, so that's where the Gordon comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's definitely built into my body. It's definitely built into my DNA, so to speak. I mean, like, the first time I drank, it was like I was off to the races. So there's definitely something there when it comes to trauma. Yes, thank you. Generational trauma that is like intertwined within us. Yeah, but I think I would say it's probably more for you in the Irish culture itself. I mean, that's like the first stupid stereotype that you hear when it comes to Irish people. It's like, well, you must love to drink, which is, I used to think it's, funny, but, now the more I think about it, the more like honestly harmful that can be to, the people, the Irish people, and there's so many things that ugly stigma that is associated with it,
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, I was speaking to one of my friends yesterday about this, and it was kind of the way it was kind of explained to me. It made perfect sense. So if you look at like the black culture in America as well, and it's quite similar with the black culture in America as well because of slavery down the years, and you can still see the effects to this day in behaviors and crime rates and drug addiction and all that kind of stuff as well. But we were speaking about protests, and there's a lot of ugly shit that's going on in Ireland right now at the moment in terms of politics, and there's like mass migration and all that kind of stuff. But there's no protests from the Irish people the way they should be, and it kind of it made sense the way he explained it to me. He said, like, if you look at the likes of the French Revolution, they killed and cut off the king's head. In a sense, it was a mass protest, the way they rebelled against them, and that's how the French Revolution came about. But if you look back in, a couple of 100 years ago in the likes of the Irish culture, we were ruled over the English, or we were ruled or colonized by the English for hundreds of years. But it was, you do as you're told. In a sense, we done as we were told, and in a sense, that's actually happening today. But it's happening with the government. The government are telling us what to do, and we do as we're told. So, but if you look at the French are very, very successful at mass protests. Like, so it's just, it's crazy how it's madness. It blows my mind.
Yeah,
It blows
really
my
is.
mind. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
sorry. So keep. Yes. So, okay, so you've had a really rough childhood, and you got to the point now where, like, here you are. How old are you?
26 and 27
26.
next week.
Okay, you said that. Yeah, 26. So you're 26, and then let's back up a little bit. When did you start like hitting it hard? When did it? When did you lose control of this thing? When did it get crazy?
So I took my first drink when I was about 12 years of age. Drink has always been a problem since the day that it touched my lips. It was I could never, since the day that I started drinking from 12 years old, I could not control it. So from the very first drink, I would black out. Like, I blacked out from the first time I drank, and every single time after that, it would just black out drunk.
Wait, so
drunk.
you would black out from the first time, almost the first time? Is that what you said?
So no, the first time I ever drank alcohol, I blacked out and
Whoa.
puked.
Wow.
And that happened quite regularly every time after that, up until the age of 25.
Wow.
So it's always been a problem for me, but I suppose the people that I was hanging around with, I suppose I went to, it was when I went into secondary school, and I started, meeting new people, and they would have been older people and stuff like that. So it was at that point where, when my dad left the house and I had no kind of role model or anything like that, I looked towards the streets for a role model and could find it in drug dealers and thieves and, I suppose, criminals in a sense. They accepted me, and that's what I craved. I craved for the attention, I craved for the acceptance and love and compassion, and that's what I got from those people. And it's because when I started hanging around with those older people, it's when I started getting introduced to alcohol and substances and stuff like that. My drinking has always been a problem. Now that I look back, I've been in trouble and arrested multiple times, like 3 times in one night.
So when you say you were getting in trouble, sorry to cut you off. When you were getting in trouble, like what was going on? I know you said you were seeking validation and seeking kind of like a community, like a group of people that would help support you, I guess,
yeah,
or be your family. I think would probably be the better word. What were you being arrested for?
So there are multiple serious assaults, drugs, weapons. There's a couple other things that I can't really mention on the podcast.
Yeah,
Just I don't want to incriminate myself.
no, of course.
But the type of people that I was hanging around with, essentially, we were a gang, and it was very dangerous for me because of, I suppose, the mindset that I was in at the time. I was seeking and looking for external gratification and people pleasing all the time. So if something needed done, I was the one to do it, whether it be violent to people, if it was drug dealing, if it was using weapons and all that kind of thing. I would go to the extreme with every single thing that I done. I remember I used to physically do this to myself. I used to crack glass bottles over the top of my head, and just to make people laugh, just break glass bottles over the top of my head, and there'll be blood gushing out of my head and all that kind of stuff. And I just used to take it to the extreme with absolutely everything, and it got me in the ropes of trouble. And I suppose the drinking, the drugs, the drug dealing, the violence, I craved all of what came with it, and I got it. I started getting involved with very dangerous criminals in Sligo and in Ireland. Well, in Sligo in the west of Ireland, and I was getting way in over my head. It came to the point where I was still living at home with my mum, but it came to the point that the people that I was fighting with were very, very dangerous, and it would lead to my house getting petrol bombed. There was death threats. Just, yeah, it was a living nightmare, and it was kind of, I was at the point where I didn't care if I lived or I didn't care if I died. And I suppose I was trying to live up to a reputation of being feared and being just a horrible person. And I got it. I got it tenfold. Like, I really, really got it. And it followed me for a very, very long time. And it's only in the last couple of years that that reputation is starting to slowly diminish itself, thank God.
Mhm.
But I worked so hard to build that reputation up, being the most feared person and being violent and being just a lunatic, a crazy, crazy person. And I was for many, many years. I didn't care if I lived or I didn't care if I died, and I didn't care if I went to prison. I thought prison would be a perfect place for me because of where I was in my life and what I was doing. It
Yeah,
was
I can relate with you with like the not wanting to care if you're alive or dead. Like towards the very end of my, like when I drank myself to the liver transplant, I was just, I wasn't, I wasn't even there anymore. I was just like, I'm done with this. I'm done with life. I'm done with existing. I'm done with being a burden on people's lives. I'm done with, I just hated myself. I just didn't want to deal with myself anymore. That's how sad I got. And it sounds like a lot of that you were going through it too, but you were actually dealing with it in almost an aggressive way. Like, I'm not judging by any means.
yeah.
Trust me. Like, this is not. I never do that. I'm thinking of this like almost like this Peaky Blinders like childhood that you said.
Yeah.
Right?
I think
Crazy.
what it was, and the reason why I chose aggression, it was because that's where I got a reaction.
Right.
So like
Interesting.
I was attention that I was craving. It was attention that I was looking for, and the only way that I got the attention was by creating violence.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, looking back now, I can see everything unfold, how it has happened, and like at the time I didn't obviously know I was looking for attention. I
Hmm.
just knew whatever I was doing was making me fucking feel good, and but not having the emotional awareness of what was actually going on inside.
So you had this crazy childhood. You're basically you're basically tied up in um you know uh, criminal activities. And what was the break, like what was the point, what was the breaking point of I got to get my life together. I mean, I know you said when your mother passed away, unfortunately. I mean, that's just so tragic. I can't even imagine losing a parent that way, especially someone that you were very close with, right?
Yeah.
um what was the point, what was like the turning point?
I mean, this went on for many, many years. There was a couple of occurrences what happened that made me really think about what was actually going on in my life and what direction that I wanted to go in. Because I had no direction, I had no guidance, I had no support. And anyone that tried to help me or support me or guide me, I didn't care. I just rebelled against them. I was just that type of person. That's where my head was at that time. In 2016, I met with my now partner. We met on Tinder, funny enough.
That's where I met my wife.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
amazing, man. 8 years later, we've got our own house. We've got two kittens. We've got a kid, car, everything. Like, it's absolutely amazing. When I met her, I was a binge drinker. Well, I don't know about you. I was a binge drinker, so I would go out for 2 weeks, and then I'd go on it for a week and a half, and then I would die for 3 days, and then go on it again. Like, so that's where I was dangerous, because I was obviously taking coke as well and taking every other drug under the sun. So I was staying up for like 4 or 5 days, and I used to get myself in the ropes of trouble. And where we were staying at the time, I wasn't going out as much because I was in a serious relationship, or starting in a serious relationship. So I was trying to impress her. I was trying to do all the right things, but deep down inside, I was just a fucking mess. But she didn't
Mm.
see that yet. So I was trying to minimize or successfully use and only go out at certain points. So maybe at the weekend or on a Friday or on a Thursday. But when I would go out, I could not come home. I physically couldn't come home. I just once I start, I cannot stop. I have no stop switch. And we went out one night and we were drinking in a house for 3 days. And there was a group of lads that were trying to get in, a group of guys that were trying to get into the house. And we wouldn't let them into the house. So they broke the windows in the house that we were staying in. And me being full of drugs and full of alcohol, tried to act the hard man. And I opened the door and kicked one of them into the face and started fighting with about 4 or 5 of them. And they threw me onto the ground and just started kicking the fucking life out of me. But as I got up, one of them hit me with a car jack on top of the head. So if you see the scar right there, so I got hit with a car jack and it completely split my whole top of my head open with like 12. I got like 12 staples. When that happened, I didn't think to go to the hospital, so I continued drinking, poured vodka on the top of my head to sterilize it, and continued taking MDMA or ecstasy tablets, and kept doing that for like 2 or 3 days. And then it was after that I ended up going to the hospital, and then I started like thinking like, what the fuck is going on with my life? Like what? Like this is not normal. Like, why can't I just go out and have a couple of drinks like other people? Every time I go drinking, it's violence. It's ending up thousands of euro in debt over a weekend. Just everything was excessive. Everything was just all or nothing. And I still do that to an extent to this day. And I remember watching a documentary. It was on BBC, which would be a UK channel. I don't know if you have it.
Oh, I love the BBC.
Do you? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a document.
Louis Theroux's like my go-to dude. Well, like anything that's interesting, anything I find fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, he's brilliant. Yeah, you kind of have a resemblance of him.
I kind of do. I've actually gotten him before. He's much taller and leaner, but yeah, his wit is really dry and funny.
Yeah.
I mean that's mostly Irish in England.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's I love the BBC. Yeah.
So there was a documentary on the BBC. It was called One Killer Punch. And what this was essentially, it was people just going out on a night out and getting into a fight, and it would be one person hitting another person a punch and killing them dead. And I was like, when I started watching that, it made my like skin crawl. It made me violently sick. It made me anxious because it gave me flashbacks to how many times I could have killed someone or they could have killed me. And I was like, no, I like this. This is where I draw the line. This is where I'm not going out looking for this kind of life anymore. Because all it takes is for one person to fucking fall and hit their head. And you're doing a life sentence for manslaughter or whatever it may be. And then that was like, Jesus Christ, that was like reality really hit. So that's when the violence kind of stopped, and that's when the fighting stopped. But it was about the time where everyone, all my kind of friends and people who I was hanging around with were all in college. So what do you do when you're in college? You take excessive amounts of drugs. You go out 4 or 5 nights a week. And that's exactly what it was. And I was like that for like 2-3 years, where I got myself into up to about 20,000 euro in debt. Oh. Yeah, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. I was very fortunate to the people that I owed it to. I actually knew them. So I set up a payment plan with those people where I could, pay it back once a week or every 2 weeks and stuff like that. A lot of the time, a lot of people are not so fortunate where if you owe 20,000 euro, you're doing jobs for them or you're doing something else for them. So
what's that like? 30? Was it like 35 like US dollars? I think it's like the euro.
Yeah, probably
something like that, right?
Yeah.
Can I back you up a little bit?
Of course you can. Yeah.
So you said I think you said 2016 you met your partner.
Yeah.
Yeah. On Tinder, and which is awesome. Yeah. And it seemed to be like that was like the beacon of hope almost. I mean, was she you don't have to talk about anything personal, but was her coming into your life, was that like a changing point? Was that a renewal of the person that you were eventually going to end up being?
Yeah, so
she helped
me massively, and she is the pinnacle of my whole life. We had a conversation yesterday over breakfast that when I met her, I was only like, I think I was 17 years of age. Yeah, but I think it was 17 going on 18. I told her that I was 21 on Tinder. So she didn't realize that she was getting with a 17-year-old. So
that's a different podcast.
Yeah, exactly. When we first, because I spent a lot of time out of the home and not wanting to be at home, I was completely illiterate to what was to how to use a washing machine, to how to cook, how to clean for myself,
Mm.
all those kind of things. And she could not fathom how someone that was about to turn 18 could not use a washing machine or not go. I had no idea how to do this. So like I was going into we moved in together like after 2, 3 weeks. And after that, like she was teaching me how to pay bills, how to cook, how to clean, how to iron clothes, all this kind of stuff that I was never shown as a kid.
It almost sounded like she was helping you grow up.
That's exactly like I remember I was reluctant to get into a relationship because I was kind of aware of where I was in my life. Of I told her how much money that I owed, and she was willing to pay some of it. But I was like, you can't
Angel.
do that. Like this is I've got myself into this mess. I have to get myself out of it. But um,
Mm-hmm.
she's helped me so much. She's the mother of my. We've got a house together. She's helped me grow and develop in ways that cannot be taught. It's just I wouldn't be alive if that woman wasn't in my life. It's just as simple as that.
But yeah, so going back to your story. So okay, so you have your partner, you're going crazy. Person I'm looking at now, like where did this person come from? Like how did you get here?
I just go
Because you were telling me earlier that because you were telling me that you were offline. You were telling me that you're doing like some public speaking gigs and things like that. Like what, where where is that coming from? Like where did that start?
yeah, I got kicked out of school from I think it was about 15 years of age, and it's very ironic actually because I just got emailed from the school 2 weeks ago to speak to the students about the dangers of alcohol and substances. So it was a very surreal moment for me being kicked out of school and then to be invited back to the same school to talk to the students about the dangers of alcohol and substances. I always knew I had this drive or desire to want to do better or want to succeed. And I didn't know what it was at the time and I didn't know where I was going in life and had no direction. But I always had like a fire or a desire to do better and just, I suppose, break the chains and break the cycle and, have all that generational trauma stuff from me because I don't want my son to ever go up seeing the shit that I seen.
That's great. That's awesome.
About 18 months ago. Yeah, thank you, bro. I appreciate that very much. 18 months ago, I was at my wit's end. I nearly died. Maybe a little extreme. I went back to with my friends to Liverpool. I just got obliterated on the plane over. My phone, my wallet, all my money, and I got lost in Liverpool till about 5 o'clock in the morning. And Liverpool's a very dangerous place. Had no idea where I was. Didn't know where I was going. I got lost, and I was walking around the streets of Liverpool for about 5 or 6 hours. And I was very fortunate that a taxi driver picked me up and brought me to. He asked me like, what hotel you're staying at? And I was like, I have no idea. I've got no money. I've got no nothing. He said, all I know is I'm staying at this hotel, and the name of it was the Travel Lodge. And he told me about 20 travel lodges in Liverpool. But I was very, very fortunate that he brought me to every single one until I got home safe.
Wow, that's a cool cab driver.
I swore that if we ever had a kid together, he would grow up in the same environment that I did. But lo and behold, I was then creating the exact same environment. I couldn't stop. I got the answers. I didn't know what was going on. I was like, why can't I just stop? Anytime I put a drink to my lips, I am just gone. I'm off to the races. No one can stop me. And I don't even have reasons to tell you why. She was like, there's something seriously wrong with you. You need help. And I was like, I don't need help. I'll try and use successfully. She was like, you're an alcoholic. And I was like, I'm not. I don't drink every day. It's once every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever. She was, yeah, but when you drink, it's just fucking drink and drugs and chaos and carnage. How do you expect to raise a son and have a family if that's the lifestyle that you're living? So I just had enough one day and I became completely obsessed with the idea of suicide and killing myself. And I used to get obsessed of driving home from work and just turning the car into another car or crashing into a wall or crashing into a river. And I just had enough of it. And I went to the hospital and I told him, I said, look, I said, I am going to kill myself tonight. I said, I need help. I said, that I am at my wit's end. I said, I'm taking an excessive amount of drugs. I have been for a very long time. I said, I need help. And to be honest, the answer that I was looking for, I didn't get. I was told that I would be put on a wait list from about 8 to 10 months before I would be seen by a psychiatrist. Never even heard of any. But I went to my first meeting, and it was the fella that shared your story the other day, and you commented on it saying thank you very much or whatever. He was the very first person that I met at a meeting, and his story just blew me away. I was going to very naive, thinking that nobody was going to understand me, and it just couldn't have been any further away from that. Everyone understood me, and everyone was talking exactly how I was feeling. And I was just like, I ran my girlfriend. I was like, this place is amazing. This is just, it was so beautiful, and that's where my recovery journey started. It was 8 months ago. In any meeting, I went to meetings religiously every single 4 or 5 months. I don't go to meetings anymore, and I'll kind of. Do you want me to tell you why?
Yeah, I'm curious. What? So, well, first of all, I just want to say to the listeners out there, what you did takes a lot of courage. All of them that really, I love that you said that when you went, you didn't think you would fit in, and you didn't think you would like relate to anyone, or anyone would relate to you, right? I got that too. I was like, no, I can't relate to anyone. This is stupid. Like, I'm not wasting my time. I'm still gonna drink anyways. Like, I'm not learning anything. But then, I did go to a meeting one time, and there was someone there that, you know, totally understood everything I was going through, totally could relate to me. And the best part, he gave me like super good advice, like, keep coming. That's what they always say, like, keep coming, keep showing up one day at a time. All those things that you always hear. But
Yeah,
yeah, like just that community that you reached out, you were vulnerable, you put yourself out there, and you benefited from it. So like, if anyone watching this right now and listening to the story of yours, which is just unbelievable, the fact there is help, just go to those meetings, because you never know who you're going to run into or what they're going to say that's going to spark that thing in you that's like, oh my God, like that aha moment, like, this is why I'm here, this is why this exists, right?
everything makes sense.
Everything. It's really cool that you found that group of people, you were doing all these activities. That's a cool thing about sobriety, is when you make the decision, it sucks at first and it's super hard, and you're like, I'm never going to have fun again, this is boring. But then you do find those people that you kind of like, have similar interests in life again. That's so crucial, those first initial months of sobriety, to find that group of people that you have, like-minded people that you can, similar interests and things like that, you can actually express yourself in a healthy way for once.
I don't suffer from anymore. I don't take drugs. I don't drink anymore, so I don't suffer. If that makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense. What do you think that is? Like, why do you think you're just not suffering anymore? Is it because you're just clear-minded?
I can only speak from my own experience. Like when I was in the room, people were saying like, "Oh, if you don't go to your meetings, you're gonna die, or if you don't go to your meetings, you're gonna suffer with this disease of addiction." Or like I don't take drugs anymore. I don't drink anymore. I don't do those destructive behaviors anymore. So I'm not gonna tell myself continuously on a daily basis that I am someone that suffers with this disease if I don't drink or take drugs anymore. If that makes sense.
The universe has an interesting, funny way of setting us up for success when we're acting in successful ways. Friend, is the person that you started the podcast with that you're doing, is that someone that you met through that, or is that someone that you've known for?
It was someone that I met through NA. We only knew each other maybe 3 or 4 weeks, and he came to me with the idea of a podcast and all this kind of stuff. He had like 5 years under his belt at the time, when I was only like, I don't even 60 days clean at the time. I suppose the dynamic on the podcast, you don't want to put two people on a pedestal of like, oh well, they've got like 6 years on their belt and all this kind of stuff. So the dynamic of having someone that's just fresh in the door, and you have someone that's been around quite a number of years. Like the whole that I wanted to get involved with this podcast was about early intervention. So that's actually come to fruition now, where we're going to local schools. We're going all across Ireland, speaking to schools and colleges and different youth centres about the dangers of alcohol and cocaine and substances, and doing different workshops and stuff like that. And we've also headlined multiple festivals across Ireland as well, speaking about addiction and mental health. So it's in a positive direction. I think more people that speak about this and stuff, and we normalize these conversations because it needs to be spoke about. It's not normal for people. There's such a stigma around fucking, especially alcohol. Especially alcohol. I don't know what it's like in the US, man, but it's just it's so normal. Like,
It's so normal. It's so a part of our culture. It's I mean, honestly, it's a world issue. It's not just like Ireland, UK. It's or America. It's everywhere, and it's so this path that you took is incredibly inspiring, and I hope people enjoyed it. Mano, so where can people find you? Like, where can people look you up? Check out this cool podcast you got going, and maybe go to one of your public speaking gigs.
yeah. So my Instagram is Mano O'Kane. My podcast is called Lock, Stock, and Two Joking Addicts.
Cool name.
That you can find that on all streaming platforms. We have a Facebook account. We have an Instagram account. So for anyone that's listening, if you have any listeners from Ireland, or we have all helplines and different organizations where if you put your postcode in, it'll actually direct local services that are in your area. But yeah, you can find us on Spotify, all your streaming platforms, and you can get us on Instagram as well. And that's Stock and Two Joking Addicts.
Awesome name. I will put that in the show notes as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, man. I mean, it was a conversation, dude. Like, you are an inspiration.
Really enjoyed them.
From where you were to where you are. I mean, it's remarkable. Where the growth that you've done, and I hope people can see that, and hope people, I know they will, and I hope people follow you, because that's quite inspiring stuff that you've done. So thanks a lot, buddy, for coming on. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, yeah, no, of course, no problem. And thank you everyone out there for watching, and look out for more episodes dropping soon. All right, take care, everybody.